You know, when you wake up from a dream, you usually only remember fragments of it. You may remember feeling something or doing something or maybe even having a conversation. But typically you don't recall the entire story of your dream from beginning to end. In fact, if you were to record a person talking through the whole night while they are dreaming, the only thing you would hear is their breathing. This makes sense because dreams seem to vanish into thin air once we wake up. But did you know that there's a way to decode these fragmented memories and put them back together like a puzzle? And even more surprisingly, our brains do this automatically every morning. In this video, we are going to explore why we dream and how our brains piece them back together overnight. This is Unmolding Science. Dreams have been fascinating humans for centuries. Ancient Greek philosophers believed that dreams contained messages from the gods. Nostradamus thought that they could predict the future, and Carl Jung believed that they were a window into the collective unconscious. But it wasn't until the 20th century that scientists began to take dreams seriously as an object of study. And today we still have much more to learn. There are many competing theories about why we dream, but two popular ideas are the threat simulation theory and the memory consolidation theory. According to the threat simulation theory, dreams serve an evolutionary function by simulating threats that we might face in waking life. In this view, dreams are a kind of mental rehearsal that helps us to prepare for danger. On the other hand, the memory consolidation theory proposes that dreams play a role in the transfer of memories from the hippocampus to the cortex, which is a part of the brain responsible for long-term storage. This process is thought to be important for the formation of new memories and the elimination of old ones. But while these theories are still being debated, we have some pretty good evidence for why we dream. Now we know that dreams occur during REM sleep, otherwise known as rapid eye movement sleep. This stage of sleep is characterized by increased brain activity and the paralysis of most of the body's muscles, except for those that control eye movements. During REM sleep, our brains process visual images, sounds, and other stimuli in a way that is similar to how they process information during wakefulness. However, the exact mechanisms that drive these processes are still not entirely understood. Researchers believe that dreams are controlled by a part of the brain called the pons, which sends signals to the cortex to generate the narrative aspects of dreams, including the storyline, characters, and dialogue. At the same time, another part of the brain called the amygdala processes emotions related to the dream, which is why we often experience strong feelings of fear, joy, or sadness while dreaming. In 1977, a researcher named John Allen Hobson proposed a model of dreaming called the neurocognitive theory of dreaming. He argued that dreams are produced by a distributed network of neurons that are activated during REM sleep. Hobson's theory was revolutionary because it was one of the first to propose that dreams are a product of brain activity rather than external stimuli. He also suggested that the content of dreams is determined by the activation of schemas, which are mental frameworks that we use to organize our experiences and knowledge. This explains why we often dream about familiar people, places, and things, as well as why our dreams can be highly variable from night to night. Another important idea is that dreams are highly dependent on context. Our brains take information from our environment and combine it with our own thoughts and feelings to create unique narratives each night. This means that everyone's dreams are different, even though we all experience the same basic emotions and interact with similar objects in our daily lives. Now let's talk about how we go from random brain activity to coherent dreams. As I mentioned earlier, the pons is a part of the brain that is active during REM sleep, and it plays a crucial role in the generation of dreams. During this stage of sleep, the pons sends signals to the cortex, which is responsible for higher-level cognitive functions such as reasoning and problem-solving. These signals activate a network of neurons that work together to create a storyline, characters, and dialogue for the dream. It's not exactly clear how this process works, but it is thought to involve the interaction of different brain regions and neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that carry signals between neurons. For example, the amygdala, which is involved in processing emotions, releases neurotransmitters that influence the tone and intensity of the dream. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making and social behavior, may help to regulate the actions and interactions of the characters in the dream. What's really fascinating is that This process happens without the input of external stimuli. That means that our brains are generating these stories and scenarios from scratch, which requires a lot of creativity and imagination. It's like our brains are writing their own movie scripts while we're sleeping. But what about the strange and sometimes bizarre nature of dreams? How does our brain come up with these unusual scenarios and characters? Well, it turns out that dreams are actually more normal than you might think. A lot of research has shown that dreams often reflect our waking experiences and emotions. They may not always make sense, but they usually have some kind of emotional or psychological meaning for the dreamer. For example, a person who is feeling anxious or stressed in their waking life may be more likely to have nightmares or disturbing dreams. Similarly, someone who is going through a major life change, such as a move or a breakup, may have dreams that reflect those changes. And while it's not uncommon to dream about flying, falling, or being chased, these scenarios often symbolize a dreamer's emotional state rather than an actual physical threat. Now, let's get back to the question I posed at the beginning of this video. When you wake up from a dream, you may only remember fragments of it, but there's a way to decode these fragmented memories and put them back together like a puzzle. And even more surprisingly, our brains do this automatically every morning. It's true that we often forget our dreams as soon as we wake up, but that doesn't mean that they disappear completely. In fact, our brains process and store dream memories in the same way that they process and store memories from our waking lives. When we dream, our brains are constantly taking in visual, auditory, and sensory information and storing it in our episodic memory. This type of memory is responsible for our ability to recall specific events and experiences. However, as we sleep and enter REM sleep, our brains begin to process and consolidate these memories, transferring them from the hippocampus to the cortex for long-term storage. During this process, our brains also organize and categorize the memories, making them easier to retrieve in the future. So while we may not remember our dreams right away, they are still stored in our brains and can be accessed later on. In some cases, simply waking up at the right moment can help us to recall our dreams more easily. This is because our brains are still processing and consolidating dream memories during the transition from REM sleep to wakefulness. If we wake up at the right time, we may be able to capture these memories before they are lost. Additionally, keeping a dream journal by our bedsides can help us to remember our dreams more frequently. By writing down our dreams as soon as we wake up, we are able to capture them in a physical form that can be revisited later on. So, while it may take some practice and patience, it is possible to improve our dream recall and relive the adventures of our dreamscapes. If you enjoyed learning about dreams and how our brains process them overnight, ask yourself, how many times have you been startled awake by a dream that seemed so real? Dreams can be powerful, mysterious and thought-provoking experiences that leave us wondering about the nature of reality and the power of the subconscious mind. But for now, thank you for watching and learning with Unmolding Science. Like the video if you liked it. Check out our other videos. Comment below with video suggestions and don't forget to subscribe and follow. This is Unmolding Science.